All right, here's our video today. Algebra 1 Regions Review, Part 4. We're going to be talking about piecewise functions. Forgot the word functions. Let's throw it in. Piecewise functions. And they're just functions in pieces, in a sense, right? So there's that word piece, right? And not war and peace, piece, like pieces. Functions in pieces. So you could have two or more equations, two or more functions on the grid. So let me show you a picture of that. So here we go. We got three equations, three functions in color over here. You see the red, the blue, and the green. So the first thing you want to do is when you see this, you're going to see a condition, right here, this condition. And we'll look at this graph later. Just wants us to see it now, but we'll look at it later. All right, back to this graph. So the first thing is look all the way to the right, and it says x is less than 2 right over here. So x is less than 2, negative 2. That means that we could use, for this grid, we can use anything less than negative 2. But what you want to do is you want to start at negative 2. So look at negative 2. When x is negative 2, plug it in. What happens? You have negative 2 plus 3, and you get 1. But again, since it has this inequality where it says less than, it doesn't say less than or equal. Over here, it says less than and equal. So if it only says less than, we have to put a circle, not to include it. And there it is, the circle. It's on negative 2, 1. Well, we can also use negative 3, because negative 3 is less than negative 2. And what happens if we do that? Just plug it in. Negative 3 plus 3 gives us 0. So at negative 3, we should be at 0, and there we are. And you can just keep doing this. Just do negative 4. Negative 4 is less than negative 2. We can use that. So negative 4 plus 3 gives us negative 1. So at negative 4, you should be at negative 1. And so on, and you'll get this red line. So let's look at the blue one now. Let's clear it out. Clear that screen. So the x over here, it's saying that it could be negative 2 because it's greater or equal. See that line? Or equal. And it's less than 3. It's not equal to 3. It's less than 3. So let's start at 3. What happens at 3? Let's plug it in. Got a negative absolute value of 3 plus 5. The absolute value of 3 is 3, but we got to throw in that negative because it's there. So negative 3 plus 5 gives us 2. So at 3, when x is 3, right over here, it'll be 2, but you notice it has a circle. It's not filled in because, what does it say? X is less than 3. It doesn't say less than or equal to. So you don't fill it in. So look at other ones that you can have here, right? You can have negative 2. You can have negative 1. You can have 0. You can have 1. You can have 2. And we already did the 3. They will all be included. So let's look at negative 2. We already did that. When it's negative 2, let's do it again. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Then we have a negative sign. Plus 5 gives us 3. So at negative 2 over here, it'll be at 3. And it's filled in because it's included. At negative 1, the absolute value of negative 1 is 1, plus the negative sign, plus 5 gives us 4. So at 1, when x is 1, it should be at 4, and it is right over here. At 0, there's no such thing as the absolute value of 0, so it's just 0. There's no such thing as negative 0. So it'll just be 5, and it is right here, and so on. Let's clear that out again. What about the green? Well, the green, it says it's greater than 3 or equal. So it could be 3. So we start at the 3. We start at the 3. We filled it in because it could be 3. So 3 minus 4 gives us negative 1. And you notice it's at 3, negative 1. So we can use 4. 4 minus 4 gives us 0. And at 4, it's at 0, as you can see. We can use 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. At 5, it's at 1, and so on. That's piecewise functions. So let me give you one, see if you can do it. All right, so if you look at the first one, it says x is greater than 0. So both of them have 0. So we start at the 0. Let's look at this one first. It's saying, and let's make sure we have our pen ready. There it is. Clear that out. So let's look at this one first. Which line do you think it is? Well, it's this one, because you can't include the 0, right? It says it's just greater than 0. And if it's greater than 0, it's going this way. You can see that. This one over here saying it's less than or equal to, so that's why it's filled in. That's why it's filled in. So if we're looking at the number 5, let's say, well, where would 5 go? 5 will go where? 5 is greater than 0, so it'll go here. So then you have to add a 3 to it. 5 plus 3 is 8. That's the condition. So at 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that'll be 8 over there. And let's say you had negative 3. Well, where would negative 3 fit? Well, negative 3 is not greater than 0, so you have to use this equation. And it says negative 3. So it'll be negative 3, which is just a positive 3. So at negative 3, let's say it's over here, you'll use 3. Let's say it's over there. All right, so let's look at one on a test. How would you do this one? Why don't you pause the tape, see if you can do it. So they have two conditions with x is what? X is less than 2, and one where x is greater or equal to 2. So we should start at 2. How would we do the 2? So why don't you pause the tape. So if I'm looking at 2, and I'll use different colors, I'll use purple first. So let's look at this one right here. At 2, when x is 2, we have to do negative half times 2. That'll give us negative 1. So when x is 2, right here, it'll be negative 1, but we can't include it. Cannot include it, so we'll just put an open circle there because we can't include the 2. But over here, we'll use green for the next one. It says x is greater or equal to 2. And if that's the case, it's just x. So when x is 2, it'll be 2. And we fill it in because it could be 2. And if x is 3, because 3 is greater than 2, it'll be 3. If x is 4, it'll be 4, and so on. And we'll get this line somewhat going that way. That will be the green line, this one. Now let's finish the purple. What'd you do? Well, what else is less than 2? Well, what about 1? 1 is less than 2, so negative half times 1 gives us negative half, right? So when it's at 1, it's at negative half, and we'll use purple. Make sure we have the purple one. So it'll be around here when it's at 1. What if it's at 0? At 0, it'll be 0. And what if it's, let's use another one. What if it's at negative 4? Negative 4. So we get negative half times negative 4. That'll be 2. So at negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say it'll be at 2 over here. So we have this line, something going like this. There's our piecewise function. So again, this one is open because we're not including the 2. This one is filled in because we are including the 2. So those are piecewise functions you'll find on Algebra 1 Regents.